All right. Yesterday we saw Kenyan commercial banks quoting the Kenyan shilling at 85.65.85 to the dollar, and this was steady compared to Monday's close, but the local currency has shed 1% since June the 6th, but it is still up 0.7% this year against the dollar. Crossing over to the Nairobi Securities Exchange, we saw the Kenyan shares falling for the 8th straight session to hit a 14-week low on Tuesday as investors jolted out of the market, and we saw it closing at 4,701.22, while the main share index was down 5.9% was down 0.1% to 118.78 points. With us in studio, we have Jeffrey Minor. He is a research analyst at Old Mutual. Many thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Now, we've seen a general lackluster performance in the Nairobi Securities Exchange, and it has been shedding week on week.
Yeah.
For you, what is the sentiment that we have at this particular point in time?
For me, what I can say is in the recent past, we've been seeing the NSE losing. The investors at the moment, they're a bit jittery about the whole market, because for the frontier markets, and particularly the Nairobi Securities Exchange, we saw at some point during towards the close of Q1, the returns they were year to date of almost 40% and above. Even explaining some of the price movement in some of the counters, especially the Kenyan banking stocks, it was a bit difficult to maybe explain what was really pushing that rally. But at the moment, we are seeing mostly the foreign investors cashing out on some of the gains that they've made in some of the counters, particularly KCB equity. We've seen at some point KCB traded at here highs of 43 shillings.
And
but
yesterday
right now,
it actually shed nearly 3% to close at 36 shillings.
Yeah, exactly, at 33 shillings. So this trend, it's in my opinion, it's bound to continue, but the question is for how long?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a good question you asked, because when we were chatting earlier, you had mentioned that foreign investor participation has actually reduced to 34%.
Yeah.
And I know the Kenyan market is actually driven by foreign investors who account for about 70%.
Yeah.
When can we expect the hold to come to a stop?
It might take a while, because as of yesterday's session, the foreign investor participation was at 36%. So maybe to them, most of them, they're trying to see how the global, the Fed's decision in relation to the whole stimulus program for the US economy is going to turn out. And for them, they're just adopting a wait and see attitude, because you see, for them, they have a global understanding of the markets. They invest across the advanced markets, the emerging and the frontier markets. So it's sort of a cyclical trend. Right now, for most of them, they are moving to other frontier markets. Give a case in point, let's say Nigeria, which is measured to be on the same level with NSE. So if at the moment now we are seeing the downward trend in the NSE, it's really pushing most of them out of our market at the moment, and they're moving, taking their investments to other market levels.
Could another reason be the 10% proposed capital gain tax on the Nairobi Securities Exchange on shares?
The Treasury proposal to reintroduce the capital gains tax, to them, they are trying to come up with a way of bridging the budget deficit. But you see, for investors, to them, they are looking at that as additional tax burden. So to that, it might end up pushing some of them out of our market, mostly if it's adopted. And if, because you remember the Treasury, they are proposing at 10%, but anything more than 10%, it's not going to be good for our growth. So that may have caused
some jittery and an anxiety for investors.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, looking at Kenya Airways, it took a nosedive yesterday, though the previous day it was actually up nearly 3%, and yesterday it lost another nearly 3% to about 10 shillings.
Yeah.
For you, do you see it's a volatile stock that investors are not quite sure whether they want to buy or sell?
At the moment, most of the investors are really keeping off Kenya Airways, given in mind that they posted a very huge loss, 7 billion loss from profit levels of around 1 billion the previous year. So before Kenya Airways really turns around to be a profitable company again, it will really take a while for them. In the recent trading sessions, we've seen even foreigners really shying away from Kenya Airways. It's only being driven by the local investors. Right now for Kenya Airways, you can't maybe call it to be a short-term investment vehicle. You have to approach it from the attitude of a long-term view.
But it's not as severe if you compare it, if you put it in the context of the aviation sector, sorry.
Not really, but what maybe might make Kenya Airways to change that trend is we remember when they did the fully brief, the company had some interesting proposal that they are planning to do to just turn around the company. So it will wait and see if maybe some of their proposals they really will really work out for them. Yeah.
Safaricom is one stock that has been quite resilient, though we are still seeing it traded at very low volumes compared to what it normally trades at. I think yesterday it traded about 2.2 million shares.
Yeah.
Ordinary to do even 10.
Yeah.
But we saw it yesterday rising about 2%. What are your expectations on that counter?
Safaricom, like for yesterday's case, it really had foreign, of the 2.2 million turnover that it did, foreign buys in that company, in that stock, it was almost above 80%. Safaricom is one of the stocks that it's really backed by foreign investors, and if you get a counter as a counter that has that sort of foreign investor interest, you'll be able to maybe be able to push its price levels. We saw during the last week session, at some point it even traded at 6.5, but it's been recouping slowly, and yesterday it did.
Will it get back to the highs we saw of 7 shillings and 35 cents?
That's still a wait and see, because the trend currently in the market, so we can't really say it will maybe, it can hit 7 shilling, but yeah, the question is it's always to do with wait and see attitude, the investor attitude that it's going to be in the market.
All right.